Today, we're going to welcome back Gus Tai, my friend and colleague for many, many, many years. Gus has been a very active veteran investor in the industry. He was general partner at Trinity Ventures and has also done a tremendous amount of angel investing in really important companies. And Gus and I have shared a lot of brainstorming for many, many years. And we're bringing some of that brainstorming to you in light of all that is going on in the world right now, especially AI driving such major changes, such major opportunities. Gus, welcome back.
Oh, thank you, Shamana. It's always lovely to see you.
So, Gus, we discussed thoroughly education last time and AI in the context of education and startup opportunities in particular. I thought we would um, focus on healthcare today and deal with different aspects of healthcare that are being touched by AI at the moment. So I think the starting point where it would be good to brainstorm is one that you have done some work in drug discovery. Now, in a recent roundtable, we had Mo Islam from Threshold Ventures, and they are um, they are investors in Atomwise, which is a drug discovery platform, and they are selling the platform for drug discovery to pharmaceutical companies. And I asked him, are you selling only to large pharmas, or are smaller, startups and so forth able to access such a platform? And where I'm coming from is, as you know, in 1 million by 1 million, we emphasize hugely bootstrapping. And if you have to build the entire AI stack to even start doing drug discovery work, that is not a bootstrappable venture. So I'm a little bit concerned that, everybody who's in this ecosystem, the scientists, people who have real knowledge of specific diseases, specific biology, life sciences conditions that could, inform drug discovery work will not have access to a platform to, kind of springboard off of. How do we think about this, Gus?
Yeah, so regarding opportunities to apply AI to healthcare and to drug discovery, there's tremendous opportunity. Now, whether those opportunities are easily accessible to people who want to bootstrap, I think that's a dilemma. That's a question mark. And the reason is that the drug discovery market is most vibrant here in the U.S., where there's a process, the FDA process of approval of drugs, and it requires a lot of capital to test the drugs that's actually declining in expense to discover the drugs, but then the testing process is rigorous and takes a long time and a lot of capital. And the way that the pharmaceutical industry is designed is that you have these organizations that are doing the R&D, and once they get further along, you have these aggregators. They do more than aggregation. I'm being simple, but I just want to talk about the business concept of the aggregator distributor, like a Pfizer,
Yeah.
that if they're not developing their own drugs, will partner or acquire these drugs because they have quite hefty capability and skill at marketing and distributing drugs. And so this whole process is designed around finding and discovering and distributing multi-billion-dollar drugs. So it's kind of a jumbo in size, and so I think that when I had funded one of my very last formal investments as an institutional general partner was in a company called Cyrus Bio that was founded by Nobel Prize winning David Baker, who had innovated a lot of techniques on how to apply AI for drug discovery. And that company had to decide whether to be a platform or whether to use the technology for individual drugs. And they're different business models. They had a platform business, and the platform business can be bootstrapped, not bootstrapped, can be much more capital efficient, but there haven't been as many platforms that facilitate drug discovery that have become large and jumbo in size for the venture industry.
Mm-hmm.
So perhaps there could be some new opportunities, but for entrepreneurs. But I'm not sure it would be. I'm not sure they would be as large as what a medium-sized venture firm would want to see in terms of size.
So, so somebody who's a scientist, let's say somebody who has the life sciences background to do drug discovery work and wants to use AI to build a company in a specific area of drug discovery, what are we saying? Are we saying that this group scientist or this group of scientists have to then pair up with some computer scientist who can build them a platform? Is that the path that they have to take?
Well, I wouldn't. So there are traditional paths, and then there are, of course, always going to be novel, innovative paths. And for the traditional paths, even traditional in using AI, not generative AI, but other forms of AI, those paths tend to be more capital intensive. So it would be like the industry of developing fusion energy. Like it's hard to see what would be the opportunities that would be very capital efficient. But to your question, it would if you are someone who is investigating either discovering new drugs or discovering techniques that would facilitate discovering a class of drugs, mm-hmm. They would need to be partnered with people who are skillful with using the AI algorithms appropriate for that area. Then that group of people could look for sort of like NRE funding or development funding, yeah. and develop modules. And that could be an interesting IP type of business. Mm-hmm. That wouldn't be very capital intensive initially.
Yeah. Well, I'm just looking for ways for, Google's AlphaMind is a good yes. example, good model of a lot of scientists have been given access to that and at a, affordable price point. So the impact that is having on scientific discovery and scientific research is humongous. And somewhere in this continuum, I see that there's a missing area where there is no platform as a service like AlphaMind that scientists can tap into to do drug discovery work using AI. So this is an opportunity. Now, the size of that opportunity is something that is TBD. I think what I'm hearing you say is that it's not a humongous, the platform opportunity is not a humongous opportunity. The drug that comes on that platform may be a very large opportunity, but the platform opportunity itself is not a very large opportunity, which prevents investors to invest in that.
Yeah, what arose for me as you were saying that, Sharmana, it would be like that in the computer gaming industry before AI, there would be people, the teams would develop the physics engines or outsource the physics engines. They would develop the art and outsource people to fill in the detail of art in the immersive games. And so perhaps a bootstrapped area would be, I could believe this, would be if you had people who are very facile at using AlphaMind and other platforms, that a drug discovery company may have some preliminary hypotheses mm-hmm. and say, hey, can you run these simulations for me to round out different testing of vectors or characteristics and a computer modeling standpoint of a drug. And so I think that could be a bootstrapped type of business where the customer would pay money for those services. And as that company became more skillful at providing these outsourced services, it could then convert that into a platform for more robust drug development. So I think that there could be those types of services opportunities evolving over time.
Or the other possibility is that a company like 1Mby that is already providing this kind of platforms to the large pharmaceutical companies could start a business catering to the smaller entrepreneurial efforts and make that infrastructure available, facility available at some sort of an affordable business model price point.
Yes, and just to be clear on this point, if the dilemma here is that for most drug companies and multi-billion-dollar drug companies develop drugs in the US, and there's a process, and the process of getting approval of a drug is very capital intensive. And
yes.
so if you have a platform here, that's of value, you would go to a Pfizer and others, and they would want that company to have a lot of heft. And
Yeah,
so that's the dilemma. And there aren't thousands of small drug development companies because that's just not the nature of the ecosystem today. But it could develop in that direction. We'll see.
Yeah. So I think the net of all this is that drug discovery, AI-enabled drug discovery, is a capital-intensive game. Whichever way you cut this problem, it is a capital-intensive game. So if you are going into this, you need, a resume that can raise capital is bottom line, because this is concept financing. You won't really get very far without doing concept financing, and to attract concept financing, you need a resume to get to that. That's probably the net of this discussion. Now, if we shift to medical imaging, which is another area where AI is having lots of impact, and there are lots of companies working in this field and lots of entrepreneurial efforts going on in this field. I guess the question that I'm kind of thinking about is that are these going to be, unicorn style opportunities, or the million-pound gorilla in healthcare records is Epic? Epic is in every hospital system almost, and Epic happens to be a private company. So what is going to happen? Is it that Epic has enormous amounts of data? All this data goes through Epic almost, or at least comparable systems with Epic has very, very large market share. So what kind of a market dynamic are we getting into here? Somebody entrepreneurial has a software, an AI software to do some kind of analysis, and then as the company gets some validation, companies like Epic or other companies in that class just buy these companies. What are we looking at? Are these going to be independent companies? Are these all going to be relatively, bootstrapped to exit, or capital efficient exit focused companies? What kind of a market dynamic are we looking at?
Yeah, so in my mind, I view you as raising two topics that are interrelated. One is around the diagnostics capability, and the other one is the central storage of data and the distribution of data and information. And so my understanding of Epic would be that, and they're a private company. I've known them since the 90s, but I'm no longer close to their R&D strategy. But I don't believe that they specialize in advanced diagnostics. They're more of the lifeblood, the sales force of a hospital and healthcare system, and really focus in on taking in data feeds or information feeds and making it intelligent and redistributable. So as an aside, there is a lot of activity on AI in terms of ingesting data for Epic and other services. So Epic itself has a service that it can record a patient visit and take in the transcription and add metadata to it. And there's startups that are funded to do that. On the diagnostic side, I believe that there are that those would be bootstrappable or low capital requirement companies, because once again, my familiarity is with the U.S. healthcare system. There are there are rarer disease types that create a lot of concern as they should, for patients who have that and for the medical community. And so I could see how you could apply some AI to re-examine an area and have much better analysis and conclusion for that area. And that can be done through domain expertise using whatever AI algorithms are appropriate. And then by having that leadership type of position, have people being willing to pay money today because it's a painkiller. It's actually a therapeutic, a better diagnosis. And that area of expertise would appear small at first, but could be very large, wind up becoming very large. It was like, I'm forgetting the company that you've worked with or you know quite well, of the pharmaceutical SaaS company.
Veeva, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so at first, when it started, they're like, well, how big can it be? Well, what is it, a couple $100 billion? I mean, it's an enormous company.
Veeva is an enormous company.
Yeah.
Veeva is started with being the CRM for the pharma industry.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
From there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do think in medical imaging you can build very large companies. I think the reason I brought up the bootstrap issue is that, the vast majority of the industry prefers to see validation before they're willing to write checks.
Yes.
We've talked about this before. It's, the comfort zone of investors is there's some product market fit, there's some validation, and then they're willing to write the checks. Now, the world in which we operate, there are so many people who are getting to that who are trying to get to that validation, trying to be able to become fundable. And how do we bridge that gap in areas that are inherently capital intensive? Which is why I'm starting with this discussion of okay, if you want to do a lot of different kinds of medical imaging or diagnostics, kinds of, specialized diagnostics types of companies, what is the path to proof of concept so that they can then access? I think they can be big companies and they can access capital, but that proof point period, the MVP and, product market fit, early product market fit, that period is still very tricky.
And to your point, Shamana, what arose for me for your audience, in that you have a large community of international participants, that it might be that for some of these rare diseases, if they're human diseases, they take place everywhere around the world, and it's a matter of the validation of the testing of the algorithm. And it might be easier to aggregate the data and more affordable to test overseas. Yeah. And then bring it to the US. So I think that's pretty interesting. And this would just go to, where can you get the access to the data? Where can you perform the tests against it? And then if you're finding material improvement in the analysis, that would be a valuable IP everywhere in the world.
Yeah. And on the process side, we've had a company become quite successful in the program. Bootstrapped, we looked at raising money, but then eventually it was going fine as a bootstrap company, and I think it continues to bootstrap, CliniOps, and they did a lot of the infrastructure of clinical trials. And they manage a lot of international trials and so on. So I think your point is well taken, is that there is opportunity to be cost effective by doing these trials elsewhere in different parts of the world. And those of you who are listening and have expertise in this domain, you could develop expertise in how to, bring in data from less expensive geographies. Now, then comes the rest of the distribution chain. We're talking about diagnostics, and how to get the technology of diagnostics into the systems and how to get them approved and so forth. There's also the distribution of care, whether it's diagnostic care or treatment, whatever. And telehealth is starting to make some inroads. Internationally, it's making some inroads. The US healthcare system seems to be offering telehealth as well. How do we think about that? Because, you know, there are a number of things that go on a regular basis that should be automated, right? For example, you have, you know, as people age, there's more medications, more conditions to be managed, more medications that they're taking on a regular basis, and those medications interfere with each other. There's side effects and you know, one triggering another and so on and so forth. This kind of stuff seems to me like ideal for AI applications. And there should be telehealth systems that, you know, operate on this data and proactively guides patients that what are the possibilities of this kind of behavior happening. And when you apply personalization, patient level personalization and medication data, this is a rich application.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know of a venture firm that is specializing in finding companies in this particular area. And a venture firm, it's Alpha Edison down in Southern California. Given this richness and complexity of individuals, and how do you personalize what is the right type of medication or nutrition for that person, while also imbuing that intelligence with just general the general biology of human beings, which is still poorly understood. So what are these? So there's the interactions that take place for the generic person, and then which isn't well understood, and then apply it to the generic, to the customization, personalization for the individual. So both levels matter, and I think that that as we roll out AI, we'll see increasing sophistication of personalization, and I would say that it could be even done in that it can be bootstrapped, and it could be done in a simple way initially, and so if you were a functional health company, or selling some sort of nutraceuticals, since those aren't regulated to the same degree in the U.S. as drugs, those businesses have good cash flow characteristics. That if you can find something that finds a niche of consumers who find the personalization and what you're serving of value, then the margins on that business, the gross margins, are high enough to help you grow, and so you could grow for a while and go from there. So I think that could be interesting for your audience, for the community around how do we use AI to incrementally improve personalization and have a foundation for that. And then what is the way? I view this as a form of value capture. So you're doing value creation of, this is how we meet your needs, but then how do you capture that value? And in nutraceuticals, you capture it by selling consumables that are renewable, that have high gross margin.
So, Gus, could you also discuss Joanna Strober's company that you have invested in and have been tracking for a while? I think it's a good case study to discuss in this context. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And so the company is 1Mby Health, and I was a seed investor with 1Mby, and that company is a good illustration of how I think entrepreneurs, regardless of how they want to think about raising money, can approach industries. And that is that there was a latent need and then a discontinuity in being able to serve that latent need. And so the latent need is 1Mby Health is a leading company in treating the life stage of menopause for women. So there could be symptoms and discomforts that come with menopause that they treat. There could also be just changes in body chemistry that can be respected and augmented in terms of care. So menopause is not from my lens. I mean, there could be many lenses, but menopause had not, from my point of view, been an overly served market of generalists and experts in treating this, and that you have half the population of above a certain age having these symptoms that they just accept, like hot flashes and all these other diseases. And so with the change with COVID and change of telemedicine, it allowed the aggregation of taking an expert at menopause and being able to serve a larger geographical area. And then you could add other analysis of past studies of what are the drugs that are helpful for mitigating certain types of circumstances. And from my point of view, as MIDI is an emerging leader here with volume, they can, with the right type of privacy and HIMSS compliancy, analyze these cases to say, oh, it appears that these are the types of treatments that might be better for their customer. And I don't have information for what they're doing, and I'm not saying that they're doing that, but these are the opportunities that if you are a first mover because of changes in regulation infrastructure, where you can get more data, you can analyze and mine the data and provide better service.
And this is a subscription-based business model, right?
So actually, MIDI, I love MIDI. MIDI is oriented toward having real touch points of healthcare. So they have you have access to physicians and to nurses. Mm-hmm. So it's more of it's a telemedicine care provider, along with what other things the care providers provide, tuned and designed in that way with expertise. So they have very high net promoter scores of that. Patients will say, yeah, we're the healthcare provider. They're the healthcare provider that we can talk to.
So it's basically insurance covered regular healthcare business model.
Yeah, designed with building upon the successes and failures of people who were the first movers in this category. Mm. And so it's designed quite well, and it's an alternative to the traditional healthcare system. And most people don't like the traditional healthcare system in America, for better or for worse.
Yeah. So this is basically, the business model is a telehealth clinic, essentially.
Yes, that's correct. Yes, Sherman. Yeah, thank you for just being precise in saying that. Yes, with the focus and the customer adoption of, we're a telehealth clinic, but we're focused in on a horizontal need.
Yes,
consumers have that have been underserviced, and
That's
we can better service them because we can get experts that have greater geographic reach. Yes. And then as we have a larger audience, we will be able to, I suspect, analyze that to increase the precision of care protocols.
Yeah.
So that's a type of machine learning or learning or AI. I'm sure there's ways to apply AI too.
So this model could work in a lot of different niches, and
absolutely.
If you remember, I don't know, some of you here would remember, Gus would definitely remember, many years ago, I think I'm talking 2007, I came up with a formula for the future of the web. It was called Web 3.0 equals 4C plus P plus VS.
Yes, yeah, I remember that.
The 4 C's were context, commerce, community, and content. P was work personalization, and VS is vertical search. So if you take that formula and apply it to different disease conditions or different niches, maybe in this case, menopause is stage of life, and it is quite a large niche. There are maybe smaller niches. Recently, one of our relatives got diagnosed with Guillain-Barré syndrome, which I knew nothing about. I'd never heard about it, but turns out it's a serious disease, and the level of information is very low, and so on. So there could be many such niches where you could create a specialized telehealth clinic that deals with that particular disease condition, stage of life. There are various ways of determining context. MIDI Health has determined menopause as the context around which to build this new telehealth clinic. So telehealth, I think, is a very interesting opportunity, and it is something that you can get to proof of concept, can get to some level of product market fit, and can then scale with funding if you want to, or can bootstrap all the way depending on the size of the niche.
Yes, and I would add that it would become even more economic to do that as AI rolls out. So AI can be used as a capability to fundamentally transform or offer a completely new type of service. But I think over the next several years, we'll just see how it makes the workflow more efficient.
Yes.
And earlier, I had mentioned that Epic can ingest, and other companies can ingest a doctor visit and provide metadata. And so long as an expert is reviewing the metadata, that summary can have great fidelity and be very inexpensive. So you don't have to worry about the hallucination problem if someone's reviewing the data.
Absolutely, and this is a very important point, because in my model of Web 3.0 equals 4C plus P plus VS, the content piece with AI becomes very powerful. It's, you insert generative AI trained on interesting content. You have to definitely watch for hallucination, because in healthcare, hallucination cannot be permitted. This is a mission critical area. It has to be somehow controlled, and that could be done. There are different ways that people are dealing with hallucination. One of them is small language models.
Yes.
But it can be done, and then the content becomes really powerful. Interactive content, generative content becomes really powerful and can be a huge scaling engine in this particular worldview. The other point to remember from an opportunities to go after is telehealth is necessary for the population at large, the global population at large, and the vast majority of global healthcare in every dimension, in every context, is underserved. So if you want to do a telehealth clinic around a certain context in Nigeria, that's an opportunity. You can do one in India, that's an opportunity. Then you have to layer in language elements on top of that. Vast majorities of the rural populations don't understand English. So you have to run your clinic in the local vernacular language, so that, and at a price point where those medical systems can operate, and there are lots of nuances to all these problems, but this is a infinitely large startup opportunity, extremely rich.
Very much agree. That was well said, Shimana.
So now, if we switch a little bit to surgery, and now comes the domain of robotic surgery, which is again a very, very important and very promising area of AI application. And it could really change humanity's level of access to healthcare in a very big way. But from startup point of view, building surgical robots is an expensive game. So once again, for this one, if this is what you are, this is what you want to go after, you have to look for ways to get to maybe National Science Foundation funding, maybe work within the academic framework, teaching hospitals, research hospitals where there is funding available to do something like this. Because getting to proof of concept without some level of funding with robotics, surgical robotics, is impossible, more or less. So keep that in mind. Then you have to bank on your resume and your track record in science to be able to access funding and so forth. So, but those are the ducks that have to line up for a company to take off in this dimension. But then again, opportunities are enormous. Opportunities are going to be at different price points, and over time, what is going to be available only to the rich in the rich world to begin with gradually can get much larger levels of distribution as we crack some of the pricing nuts and the cost of goods nuts and so forth. Monitoring is another one that is a little bit less complicated, but we have seen some of the wearable impacts. But it seems to me it's not sufficiently penetrated. And I'm wondering, Gus, why is that the case? For example, blood pressure plays havoc with healthcare. But it's still a very archaic little machine that you have to, wrap around your arm and manually take blood pressure and note it down and send it to your medical provider, et cetera, et cetera. So there are opportunities for innovation in getting that to more easier form factors of recording blood pressure and then monitoring continuously, optimizing medication, blood pressure medication. Lack of blood pressure medication optimization creates a tremendous amount of serious problems, healthcare problems.
Well, and I view that dilemma that to be a result of affordability of device and compliance of wearing the device, and it's just a human nature thing, and so I think that there could be bootstrappable opportunities around the Apple Watch ecosystem. So Apple itself has said many times that it views health as an enormous market opportunity, even for them.
Yeah,
and that they'll help to, and they want to participate and lead through hardware and through system and services. So it's reasonable to expect them to continue to make progress with the watch. Maybe they launch a ring. I mean, of course, there's the Aura ring and others. With Apple, then, can you take the information that's being provided there of someone who wears the watch and provide a different type of analysis that could be a type of service, and with the great distribution, even a small percentage of the audience wanting that distribution could find it helpful. So
very important point, actually. Apple is when Apple first came out with the smartphone and opened up the developer platform, the iOS developer platform, a lot of interesting apps got built, and a lot of entrepreneurs found ways of expressing their entrepreneurial visions through that ecosystem. And that opportunity in healthcare, the combination of iOS as well as the Apple Watch ecosystem, is a very important platform to keep in mind as a distribution platform, as a delivery model, and so on and so forth. So definitely, if this is the direction you're thinking in, that Apple is a very important potential partner and potential platform to build on. What did I miss, Gus? What have we not talked about that we should cover in this on this topic?
Well, I think that there are trends that are much more capital intensive, but regarding just building upon your point of this drug customization,
Yeah.
and I think an example of great AI or intelligence applied to this area would be Hims and Hers, the public company that is compounding drugs and personalizing drugs and helping to work with the patient to try different dosages and getting feedback from the patient for titrating the amount of personalized medicine. So I think that will be you would highlighted that market. I think it's very large, and it does require a lot of intelligence. How a bootstrappable company approaches that, I don't yet know, but I do think it's a very large opportunity.
And what is going on in the thought process of the venture capital community vis-a-vis healthcare, drug discovery, and general AI in the healthcare and life sciences area? For when the lean startup movement came about, and SaaS was the dominant field in which VCs were investing for maybe even 15 years. It kind of settled, the venture capital industry kind of settled into this model that you bootstrap to some level of validation and then start raising money. And you can raise a huge amount of money. You could raise $100 million, $200 million of funding, but starting after you have validated and gotten to a certain point of product market fit. Now, as we discussed in this segment, that is not as easy to achieve in AI in healthcare, AI in life sciences. So how is the venture capital community thinking about the issue of funding this genre of companies?
My perspective is that they're thinking about it in the same way they always have, and that is that if you view venture as an industry, and it is a financial industry, the sweet spot has been in selling services, in funding companies that provide services to enterprise businesses. Mm-hmm. And that would be whether it was a licensed software model in the past, or it's the SaaS model, or it will be some agent model going forward.
Atomwise, basically, is the platform selling to an AI platform selling to the pharmaceutical companies, or Viva, which is a software as a service company selling to pharmaceuticals.
Yeah, and so then there are cycles, boom bust cycles around aggressiveness to try new approaches within healthcare, but those are smaller bubbles than like a SaaS waves. And I would say that right now healthcare, from my perspective, is like it's not as robust as it was several years ago. It's not like going away, but there isn't a lot of experimentation, and therefore there would be folks who want to see more evidence. However, once again, I think AI is so disruptive. Once that there's a couple of companies that spot a trend for how to unlock value, then I think a lot of funding would be available there. So the spotting of the trend can really arise through bootstrapped MVP experimentation. So I think that it's a great place to be, or if you can get by with a lot of experimentation. Here's a new capability that can transform, at least in the US, a balkanized industry that has a lot of inefficiency and a lot of discomfort with how it's designed.
Yeah.
And so if there's a way to unlock that, people will throw money at it to try to manifest success.
Great. Okay, well, that was fabulous, Gus, as usual. And next year we will continue. We'll pick up more topics and do more of these brainstorms, because I think this is incredibly powerful for people who are listening to get an overview of an industry segment, to see how you want to approach that segment, especially those who are early on in figuring out how to put one foot before the other. Thank you, Gus. I will see you in 2025.
Yeah, thank you again, Shimano. Very much enjoyed it. See you.